Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Hey everybody, welcome to the press. I'm Ryan Ballantyne. Good to have you here with us. We're doing the shows this week out of order after last week was kind of weird. Unfortunately, I was out of town and the internet situation wasn't the best, so we couldn't do a video show. It just kind of paralyzed the whole operation. Although, to be honest with you, it would have been a total disaster. I don't think I would have had JJ Spawn in my lineup, in my recommendations on a cheat sheet. He was 33rd in our ranking, which, I mean, considering that he was 150 to 1 is actually quite accurate. But we never would have gotten there, honestly. Never would have gotten there on him. Perhaps would have gotten there on an Adam Scott. Perhaps would have gotten there on Sam Burns, given that he's been playing well recently. But I got to be candid with you. I don't think JJ Spawn would have been uttered in any show that we did last week. No, not going to happen. So, we have a full slate this week. They're both done on Wednesday, and the reason for that is I have been out of town the last couple of days. I was up in New Jersey. Shout out to the Garden State. Was up there to play Baltusrol. They renovated the upper course. Gil Hanse did the lower, and then the upper. Got to play the upper yesterday on Tuesday. Incredible golf course. There's a podcast that I have coming out this week with Gil Hanse, as well as the club historians from Baltusrol. Really, really enjoyed talking to really all 4 people in those 2 conversations, and loved playing the golf course. So do a podcast on that experience on the 19th Hole Golf Show podcast if you are so inclined to listen. However, for this show, this is audio only, no video version of this. We're going to talk about the other 2 events of the week. So we've got the final signature event of the year on the PGA Tour, the Travelers Championship. The other stuff this week is still quite important, though. On the LPGA, we've got a major, the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. We'll start with that. And then on the Korn Ferry Tour, we are out in Wichita, Kansas for the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas Wichita Open. So we've got that. And then maybe 5 seconds on the Kaulig Companies Championship, which used to be the Senior Players Championship. And a couple minutes as well on LIV Golf Dallas, which is this week, and honestly kind of forgot about it. Forgot they were playing the week after, but we'll talk about that for a hot second too. First, let's start though with the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. This is one of the majors that moves around on the LPGA, and this year it is being played at PGA Frisco for the first time. So it's out of Frisco, Texas. This golf course has already hosted a senior major championship, hosted the senior PGA, so you're going to get a healthy dose of PGA Frisco in the next decade of your life. But this year, this is the women's PGA's turn to be played there. Eventually, there will be a PGA championship. I forget which year this is that happens into the future, but I'm sure we have an article about it at golfnewsnet.com. However, the question here is how this 6,600-yard test will hold up as an LPGA venue compared to a senior PGA championship venue. We don't really have a whole lot to tell us about that. I mean, we could go and try and look at the senior PGA championship and then try to make a determination based on that. I don't even know if that's necessarily all that helpful. I think you just kind of have to feel it out a little bit. And we're coming to a venue that's a little bit meaty. I mean, in some ways, it's a lot like Erin Hills in that lots of wide landing areas, lots of wide playing areas. The golf course has some pretty difficult greens, but they are pretty large in the modern context. So I think you could see some parallels between that U.S. Women's Open leaderboard and this one. Not that you're trying to draw all kinds of conclusions from what you saw at Erin Hills, but to the same extent that Erin Hills would have played more difficult, even though it was difficult, would have played more difficult if there had been more substantial wind. I think you would expect to say the same thing here in Frisco, Texas. The difficulty of the golf course is there anyhow, but it would be significantly more difficult if it's windy, and that the courses are built to handle wind where they were located, right? I mean, Erin, Wisconsin can get kind of windy. That's kind of the point. Out in farm country, just northwest of Milwaukee, Frisco's the same way. It's used to just kind of be barren desert until they figure we're going to put stuff here and then give all kinds of business incentives for people to do it. That's why the PGA has their headquarters there. That's why PGA Frisco exists. So, that all said, if that's the theory of the case, then you're probably going to see a similar set of names and have a similar set of ideas about who would do well this week. So let's turn that into what we've got at the top of the table. Gino Tidical and Nelly Korda are 10-1. Ronnie Yin is 12-1. Celine Boutier, Minji Lee, 20-1. Heyran Ryu is 22. Got a couple of 25s in Ayaka Furue and Haijin Choi. And Mao Saigo, the winner of the first major this year, 28-1. Hyuju Kim, Lydia Ko, Ryo Takeda. Angel Yin's 30-1. Aki Uwai is 40-1, who just played well last time out in Michigan, although I don't want to really draw a lot of conclusions from that either. Ari Jatanyagard is 40. Charlie Hall's 40. Jin Young Ko is 40. I mean, you can kind of go down the line here. I think, because I'm a sucker for Hannah Green, I think I'm going to bet her at 65-1. She was just T12 in the U.S. Women's Open. I mean, I don't understand the pricing there. Same thing with Ari Jatanyagard. Wide landing areas can overpower the place if she wishes. She's 40-1. Angel Yin, 30-1. Can overpower a place very quickly. I think basically all the people I just mentioned are the most likely to win, right? Intriguing to me that Maya Stark, and I realize she won the U.S. Women's Open out of nowhere, but she's 125-1 to win. It's a very similar concept of golf course that they're playing this week for this major championship. I think you almost have to bet that out of principle at this point. You're telling me that Maya Stark, I believe, is 150 or 175, depending on where you got it, to win the U.S. Women's Open, then won the U.S. Women's Open, didn't even get into double digits for betting odds for the next major 3 weeks later. That's bananas, and I think you have to bet it on principle. I think Brooke Henderson's starting to come around. She has won this event in the past, albeit at a very different place in Sahali, a very different point in her life. But that number, 70-1, seems somewhat insulting. I think Lynn Grant at 55-1 is very interesting, given how well she played at the bulk of the U.S. Women's Open. I think that's a play worth looking at. Madeline Sagstrom, who I put in a plug for our LPGA 6 group last week out in Blytheville in Michigan. She played well for the most part, although the final round was not good. But 125-1 I think is worth a look. I think you could get an unexpected champion among those types of players. Beyond that, I think you're going to struggle. I think power does matter, right, to a degree, but it's not everything. I mean, if you look at who wound up playing well at Erin Hills, it wasn't just all power players, right? A lot of high-quality ball striking got you pretty far in that tournament, and that golf course was about 250 yards longer than this one's going to be. So I think you could still look at a Saigo and Takeda. You know, they obviously they have played very well this year. Jin Young Ko's kind of starting to put it together, maybe, so she could be interesting. She's had a couple of years, feels like, out in the wilderness. Ina Yoon is going to be something someday, but that 79 in the third round might have been a teaching moment. The 68 coming back in the final day bumped up her cause quite a bit. Madeline Sagstrom's just been playing great in general. She was T19 at the U.S. Women's Open, then backed it up pretty well in Blytheville. The 77 in the third round was what got her. I think Esther Hensley is very interesting here. It's a very similar price to a couple of the players that we mentioned already. again, long hitter of the golf ball, probably made for these types of major type places. And she had a fairly steady U.S. Women's Open. Round at she had the straight 71, 72, 73, 74, just in four, not in that order. But if you look at her number, I think she's in the 65 range. I mean, she's obviously playing better generally this year than Brooke Henderson. I don't think better than Hannah Green, to be honest. I think all of those players, Hensley, Green, Henderson, are worth a look this week. Ingrid Lindblad could be interesting. I don't think she's quite there yet, but she could surprise. But she's kind of got that style of play, very aggressive. I like the way she plays for this particular major championship. Again, I'm going to bet Maya Stark out of principle, and that'll probably be where I leave those longer shots. And then maybe go get a Ariya Jutanugarn, maybe a Takeda. I think that's a good value. And then I don't want to go chase any of the 10-to-1s or 12-to-1s. I don't, with it being an unknown quantity, and there really is relative parity on this tour this year. I think you really are hard pressed to go with someone shorter than 25-to-1. I just don't think the value is there. So I think that's the way I'm going to go with it. Get it on Takeda. Really like her game. Maybe Aki Iwai. Maybe. Chisato Iwai was the one who had the great U.S. Women's Open. She's 70-to-1. So Aki is really the one who has more long-term potential, I think. Chisato is the one who won already, and that's why she had so different odds for the U.S. Women's Open than here. Now kind of the actual order of things seems to be presenting itself in this market. So Ariya Jutanugarn makes sense given that theory of the case about Erin Hills being a pretty decent proxy for PGA Frisco. Putting's going to be tricky for everybody. I imagine that scoring will be better for this because the PGA of America's mantra, along with the LPGA doing this championship together, is to get some semblance of scoring. But then again, last year, Amy Yang won this thing at Sahali at -7. They didn't make it easy. It was pretty difficult. I think you're looking at more of a 10 to 12 under winning score, and if the weather just doesn't show up at all, if there's no wind, then maybe it's a 14 under thing. But I think there's plenty of room for long shots in this event here this week. Let's spend 25 seconds on the Kaulig Companies Championship over on the PGA Tour Champions. Another major for them. This is the old senior players, played at Firestone. Bit of a longer track, but also just kind of seems to be the Jerry Kelly Invitational. He's played this course very well over the course of his career. He is 16-to-1 for a reason. A lot of it is course advantage. You stick with an Angel Cabrera, who's won the last two senior majors, has won 3 times this year on this tour. I think you have to like his chances. It's a longer golf course. It is Oakmont-ish. He won at Oakmont in 2007, 18 years ago. So not that he's the same guy. Obviously, a lot of things have happened in that time. But I think you got to look at him. I think Miguel Angel Jimenez makes sense. He's been having a fabulous year this year. A little bit of a resurgence for him on the PGA Tour Champions. And then beyond that, do you think about like a Jason Caron, who's played very well this year, really been out over his skis a little bit, it feels like at times, but certainly performing very, very well. I like him at a 50-to-1 number. Beyond that, I think you're really hard-pressed to go chase guys in these fields. They're all capable, but it's really hard to predict motivation in these tournaments, to be absolutely honest with you. I think some guys are just there because they can, if they have a great week and they exhibit it early on, they get into it, right? They go play really hard. And there's the no-cut event. You're getting all 4 rounds. So there's no... The incentive is a little bit different, right? The cut not being there. You can go make good money with a couple of nice rounds on the back end, right? And you could give yourself a chance with 4 decent rounds here. I think probably 12 or 13 under par could be a reasonable winning score. I don't think you would want to have to go after Stuart Sink at 6-to-1. Maybe Harrington at 9-to-1. He played very well at the senior PGA. I could see him winning this thing. But again, I just don't like that price. I don't love Cabrera at 12-to-1, to be honest with you, but he's won the last 2 and 3 times this year to prove the point. and then probably go with Jerry Kelly just because you can go with Jerry Kelly and stick with it that way. Unfortunately, there's no Stricker here. Stricker has become this weird anomaly where he's won almost 10 major championships on the Champions Tour, but because of the health scare from a couple of years ago, and he's just playing less. Like, you're going to see a whole lot less of that guy. So he used to be a very reliable bet, especially in these majors. Now they're a little bit more open. So I think that we probably keep it pretty tight there if you're interested in playing a little senior golf and have a little sweat on what's happening out in Akron, Ohio this week. All right, LIV Golf Dallas. So we're back in the Dallas area this week for LIV. It's so hard to bet LIV. It really is hard to bet LIV because they're at Merido, right? This is where the team championship was last year, and they've converted it to an individual event. Why they're doing it at the end of June in Dallas, I mean, I think you can ask the same question about the Frisco event. I mean, they're basically 30 minutes apart. I don't know the actual time, but they're not that far apart in Texas, and it's gonna be hot, and I don't get it. But and Merido was baked out last year for the tournament. It is really hard to kind of predict LIV. I mean, I've said this repeatedly. I don't like to bet LIV for that reason. The schedule is just kind of all over the map. There's no rhythm to it. That all said, there are a whole bunch of guys on this list we haven't seen in at least a month. And a lot of the ones you saw that were at the U.S. Open are ones that are at the top of the list this week, like Bryson DeChambeau, who missed the cut. John Rahm, who had a very nice Sunday 67, tied the low round with Rory McIlroy. Joaquin Niemann, who was a complete no-show at the U.S. Open, as most people expected, but has won 4 times this year on LIV. He's won half the events. He's plus 650. How do you bet against that? Like, for whatever reason, he feels like he's the Terminator when he gets to LIV golf events. And then, I mean, he is young Connor, from the movies, running for the Terminator at the major championships. I'm not betting any of those guys that are sub 7-1. I mean, yeah, they can win, but what's the point? Tyrrell Hatton 8-1 is kind of interesting. I wonder if he'd be properly motivated after getting so close and just kind of getting away from him just a little bit. 17 got him at Oakmont. Just a horrible lie, and that just kind of led to a unfortunate spiraling of things for him. But I think he has to feel very proud about being truly in contention to win a major with just a few holes left for really the first time in his career. He can do it. He's capable of doing it. I think there's a lot he can take from that. That's a good thing for these LIV golf events. I would be interested in him. Carlos Ortiz had himself a very, very nice U.S. Open. He's played well in Texas in the past, so probably a thing there. Patrick Reed maybe could be interesting at 22-1, but I doubt it. Brooks had something for the early portion of the U.S. Open, but then lost it. Seems like he might be dealing with some injury stuff on the side. So then you kind of dig down toward like a Dean Burmester or Mark Leishman, who's had a very nice run a few weeks. Basically a late spring, early summer run for him that was very, very good. Do you look at him? This is such a hard tour to bet. I just really do not enjoy betting it. That's why I tend to stay away from it unless I feel something pretty strongly here. I don't feel a lot strongly about this. I mean, I think you probably go Hatton Ortiz, and hopefully that's good enough for you. Phil Mickelson maybe has something to prove here if you wanted to go into a top 5 market for LIV, which is really the only addressable derivative finish market there is, but he's 80-1 to win. Maybe he's mad that he kind of wet the bed to miss in the cut in what could be his final U.S. Open. He was right there with 4 holes left to make the cut by a substantial margin and give himself a nice weekend, nice little Sunday send-off, whatever that was going to be, and instead just falls apart, double city, and misses the cut. So maybe he's an interesting player to look at this week. But again, this tour is so much a 10-person tour. I mean, Taylor Gooch is somehow still in the top 10 of betting odds. Are you kidding? He hasn't been the same the first season of LIV, first season and a half of LIV. Really, really good. Now, just back to a guy, like being a guy. It's pretty rough out there. Maybe you go Sergio Garcia for his this is a relative home game for him. He's 35-1. I know he's an Austin guy, really, but 35-1. That could be worth it for me to bet him this week. Other than that, I think it's going to be a pretty big pass for me. Now, let's finish up on the Korn Ferry Tour. Because we have these odds out there when we're doing this, usually when we're doing these shows, that's just not the case. But we're at the Wichita Open this week. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas Wichita Open on the Korn Ferry Tour. There has not been a multiple-time winner so far this season on the tour. We are more than halfway through the campaign. That's pretty surprising. Usually you get at least a guy who wins a couple times already. But if you look at the top, the top 15 names on the table for this week, you got Pearson Coody, who leads it, guy who hasn't won. Dumonte Chessart, who hasn't won. Johnny Kiefer, who has won and is definitely going to the PGA Tour. He's 20-1. Had a good experience at the U.S. Open. So maybe he's just, the theory is he's exhausted. Quade Cummins, 22-1. Marty Dow, 22-1. Austin Smotherman, who just won at the BMW Charity Pro-Am down in South Carolina. He's 25-1 with Mitchell Meisner. Ross Steelman's playing pretty well. Trace Crow's 28-1. I mean, it's a mixture of some guys who have won and played well. I think Davis Chatfield would be an interesting play here at 40-1 this week. You've got Thomas Rosenmuller playing this week, back down. He's got a PGA Tour card. He has not done really anything with it, but he's going to have to play this week because he doesn't have a spot in the signature field. There is no alt event, so he's just trying to get a rep in, really, and that could go a long way for him here this week. We'll see. I think you can go look at Blades Brown is 50-1. He's fighting for his life out there to try to get the temporary status, special temporary status, so he could play the remainder of the season. I forget what the kind of finish he needs this week to do it. It's not as high as the last time, but he's basically playing week to week to try to keep fighting on the Korn Ferry Tour. He's got the game to do it. I think he is gaining in confidence. 50-1 would be interesting to me here this week for him. I think Alvaro Ortiz at 70-1 is pretty interesting. I would bet Neil Shipley at 65-1. Beyond that, I think you're in a challenging situation betting wise. So I would probably just kind of stick to relative basics here this week on guys that have played well this season. I will throw in a Tyler Duncan at 100-1. I've seen him playing pretty well. Maybe a Kyle Westmoreland 110-1 as well. And I will also throw in James Nichols at 125-1, who's been he's getting there. He's getting where he needs to be. So there are some longer shots that I think are worth playing here this week. Again, I think you can go after some longer shots here because we haven't had a repeat winner. It seems very much a tour of parity this year, other than really Hank Lebioda and Johnny Kiefer and Sung-Yul No. I mean, those are the three most consistent players in terms of total portfolio of work this year, and all of them only have one win. Sung-Yul No is back as a couple second place finishes. Johnny Kiefer is just destined for, I think, bigger things because he's doing this so quickly. But the lack of multiple-time champions so far this year, I think, opens the door to a variety of plays, variety of chases that you can make for better or for worse here this week. That's going to do it for this audio-only edition of the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great week of betting. Hope you had a great U.S. Open as well. We'll still have another show. That'll be the full-fledged episode about Everything Travelers Championship, final signature event of the year. That'll be the last of that. And then we start to get ready. Before you know it, we are at the Open Championship at Royal Portrush, one of my favorite places on the planet. My son is named after a bridge not too far from Royal Portrush. Unfortunately, can't go this time around. Can't wait to take him to his bridge someday, but that's a whole other story entirely. So, if you have questions, get a hold of me. I'm on social media at Ryan Ballingy on X, on Insta and Facebook. It's Ryan Ballingy Golf. If you want to get a hold of me via email, ryan@thegolfnewsnet.com. You can join Golf Newsnet for $40 a year, $70 for 2 years, or $100 for 3 years over at golfnewsnet.com. Thank you so much for listening or watching, depending on what you're watching or listening to of the episodes of the press. Have a great week with your bets, and we'll talk to you real soon right here on the show. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.